morning, afternoon, evening, wherever you are, and welcome to Global Atheist News. This week's headlines. The Taliban require all women to cover their faces in public. Religious clashes across India spark fears of further violence. Radical Hindus are caught dumping the Quran. An Indian High Court rejects the recognition of gay marriage. An Al Jazeera reporter was killed during an Israeli raid in the West Bank. Israel hunts Palestinian axe attackers who killed 3. Adoption means abortion just isn't necessary, the SCOTUS claims. Senator Gillibrand, New York, has made a video about Roe versus Wade. The National Secular Society welcomes greater powers for Ofsted to tackle illegal schools. And a Free Mubarak Bala movement springs up in Nigeria. At a press conference, the Taliban Ministry for the Prevention of Vice and Promotion of Virtue announced that all women would have to cover their faces in public and laid out an escalating set of punishments for anyone refusing to comply. The punishment starts with a woman's male guardian, normally her father, brother, or husband, being visited at home by Taliban officials. Then, if a woman's appearance was still not deemed acceptable, her male relative would be summoned to see ministry officials. And after that, he could even potentially be jailed for 3 days or sent to court. Akif Muhajir, spokesman for the ministry, told the BBC the order was based on the Quran and the life of the Prophet Muhammad. Other Muslims dispute that interpretation, but Akif Muhajir described the face covering as a compulsory part of the religion. Only 1% of Afghan women, he insisted, were not already complying with the group's understanding of how they should dress. This is not only the order of the Islamic Emirate, he added, but the order of Allah. See this video.
When the Taliban took over Kabul, many residents were terrified. But Rowena, a young female journalist, decided she should go and talk to them for her YouTube channel. That was the last video she uploaded. She's unsure if the group will approve of her working or not. For now, many offices have told female employees to stay at home. Many female professionals have fled in fear. It's hard to imagine the Taliban accepting even small freedoms like this, filmed before the takeover. I really love my job and I want to carry on working, she says. I hope the Taliban will allow me to. Otherwise, I'll have to leave the country and go abroad. The last time the Taliban were in power in the 1990s, women weren't allowed to work, girls couldn't go to school. Even now, they defend punishments like lashing and stoning adulterers to death. Today, under Taliban rule, you do still see some women out and about in Kabul, though significantly fewer than before. Many are simply too afraid to step outside. So far, here, they haven't been ordered to wear the burqa or to stay at home unless accompanied by a man. But no one's sure if that will last. I've been trying to speak to any of the women here, but all of them are extremely reluctant to go on camera. That's not something entirely new, but one woman did tell me while she was deeply anxious about the future, she didn't feel safe saying anything critical about the Taliban. Even without new laws being imposed, fear is changing the way many women dress. Buying jeans anymore, says this shopkeeper. Instead, they're buying headscarves and more conservative gowns. Many are deeply suspicious of the group, but today the Taliban told female employees at Kabul's mayor's office to return to their jobs. Durkhana was one of a handful that turned up. They just said, "You have to wear the hijab," she tells me, "but I already dress like this anyway." The Taliban have always been vague in their commitments to women's rights. In some areas, they've banned girls going to school beyond the age of 12. Young Afghan women have been amongst those taking part in scattered protests defying the group.
Most of the Taliban
Fawzia Kufi is a prominent campaigner and was a member of the team negotiating with the Taliban.
A lot of women actually contact me. They come to see me or message me. They're trying a way out or looking for something different. Not only in terms of security, but in terms of hope for a better country. They don't have it anymore. But in the meantime, I think I'm very proud to see them getting ready to resist.
Many worry that whilst the Taliban do promise women will be able to work and get an education, the group will grow increasingly strict once the international focus on them comes to an end. For now, it's a time of deep uncertainty. Sikandar Kamani, BBC News, Kabul.
A group of young men clad in the saffron scarves of Hindu nationalist groups and waving swords and pistols in the air massed in front of a mosque that was holding evening prayers during the Muslim holy month of Ramadan. The men shouted abusive slogans, blared music from loudspeakers, and refused to leave. As the night wore on, locals, possibly angry Muslims in the mixed faith neighborhood, according to witnesses and police, began hurling rocks. That set off a massive street fight that was subdued only when riot police flooded the neighborhood. The Hanuman procession takes place every year in the district. So why did they stop in front of the mosque this year and force us to say Jai Shri Ram? Wondered Sheikh Bablu, a Muslim shopkeeper and neighborhood leader, referring to the chant of "Glory to Lord Ram" raised by Hindu nationalists that day. They've gone further and further just to provoke us, he said. The incident was just the latest in a string of clashes between Hindus and Muslims that have shaken India in recent weeks. Groups of young Hindu nationalists join peaceful celebrations during religious holidays, then lead rowdy processions into Muslim neighborhoods, sparking violent confrontations. While the country, which has a nearly 80% Hindu majority, has experienced far bloodier spasms of religious violence in its history, the scope and intensity of the clashes this month have alarmed observers. Hundreds have been injured nationwide, while a handful of deaths were reported in Madhya Pradesh's Khargone district. This is sparked by a rash of incendiary speeches over the past year by right-wing leaders, including a priest's appeal to fellow Hindus in December to pick up weapons and conduct a cleanliness drive that would kill off Muslims. The cleric, Yati Narsinganand, was accused of hate speech and arrested. While out on bail, he made another appearance in North Delhi, where he warned the audience that nearly half of India's Hindus would be killed if the country elected a Muslim prime minister. According to some reports, Prime Minister Narendra Modi and his BJP, which has links to the Hindu nationalist groups involved in the clashes, have not tried to defuse tensions, giving mobs a sense of impunity. See this video.
Well, but this video is really shocking. This is a shocking video. What what started out as a Hanuman rally, just look at that. The members in that particular rally, in the Hanuman Shobha Yatra, are brazenly carrying and brandishing shotguns. They are carrying pistols in a Hanuman Shobha Yatra. The video is from C&D Block Market in Jahangirpuri in the national capital. It's at the spot just before the stone pelting began. These are facts, and we're going to leave it at that. We're also going to wait for a reaction to come in just about a bit. We'll get our reporter as well who's accessed this particular video. And as you already know that the clashes broke out and Delhi riots 2.0 broke out last night, I beg your pardon, in Jahangirpuri. The situation at the moment is not tense, it's under control, but this is shocking. And these are facts. We're just putting out facts on air for all to see. This is a video where people in Hanuman Shobha Yatra, which is supposed to be a religious procession, can be seen carrying and brandishing shotguns brazenly, as you can see on your screens, and pistols as well are being brandished brazenly. Just see what all they're carrying. They're carrying the shotguns, they're carrying pistols, that's what you can make out from their visuals. And I believe there are more weapons being carried, but it's not clear in the visuals that are coming in at the moment, but we're showing you how the pistols are being brandished in broad daylight. This is at the same spot right before the stone pelting began. Shreya Chatterjee now joins us live. Shreya, we're getting this particular video that paints a very scary picture, Shreya, of people who claim to be out on a religious procession. It's a Hanuman Shobha Yatra, for crying out loud. What is the need to brandish all these weapons like shotguns and pistols, and who even gave them the access to all of this?
Radical Hindus were caught dumping the Quran. See this video from Haris Sultan and Nuria Khan.
Yeah, so here few Hindus were arrested because they were planning to riot, and they were caught, putting torn Quran pieces and piece of swine meat, and they were trying to instigate riots. So this argument is usually given. So Muslims are the one who start these riots, but in this case, apparently, clearly they had the intention of starting a riot on Eid and create a havoc situation. And we know Muslims will be the one who would have been slaughtered in this case. So this is
so they wanted, that doesn't surprise me at all. So they're basically provoking them, and this intimidation, provocation that continues, is sloganeering. Like, if you want to stay in India, live in India, you need to say, Jai Shri Ram, glory to Lord Rama. Other slogans that we said, and now the time has come to kill or be killed. Or now this. I'm not surprised at all. They will dump torn pages of the Quran and pig meat just to provoke them. And if they're stupid enough, they will be provoked, and they would. It would happen. And the whole situation is so stupid.
The High Court of Prayagraj in Uttar Pradesh, India, rejected the plea of a lesbian couple to have their marriage recognized. Although the Hindu Marriage Act of 1995 doesn't explicitly prohibit marriage between same-sex couples, it defines a valid marriage as between a groom and a bride. Justice Shekhar Kumar Yadav eventually rejected the couple's plea, and he also dismissed the case submitted by the mother of one of the couple, which accused the other of abducting her daughter. See this video.
Indian High Court rejects recognition of gay marriage, cites Hindu culture. On April 14th, the High Court of Prayagraj in Uttar Pradesh, India, rejected the plea of a lesbian couple to have their marriage recognized. The government of Uttar Pradesh opposed the plea, insisting that same-sex marriage is against Indian culture and the Hindu religion. Quote, "In India, marriage is considered a sacred sanskar, whereas in other countries, marriage is a contract, Uttar Pradesh's council said. The state's council also explained that India, quote, runs according to the Indian culture, religions, and Indian law. The council added that marriage without a man is unacceptable since it is beyond the concept of what is considered a family in Indian culture. Although the Hindu Marriage Act of 1995 does not explicitly prohibit marriage between same-sex couples, it defines a valid marriage as between a groom and a bride.
Al Jazeera journalist Shireen Abu Akleh has been shot dead while reporting on a raid by Israeli security forces in the occupied West Bank city of Jenin. The Qatar-based news channel said Abu Akleh, 51, was shot deliberately and in cold blood by Israeli troops. Another reporter was shot and wounded. The Israeli military denied that its forces targeted journalists, and it was said to be looking into the possibility that they were hit by Palestinian gunmen during an exchange of fire. Israel's foreign minister, Yair Lapid, described Abu Akleh's death as sad and said it had offered to carry out a joint investigation with the Palestinian Authority. Journalists must be protected in conflict zones, and we all have a responsibility to get to the truth, he added. Qatar's Assistant Foreign Minister Lolwa Al-Qatar said Abu Akleh was shot in the face while wearing a press flak jacket and helmet. The Palestinian Health Ministry confirmed Abu Akleh's death and said she had been rushed to hospital in critical condition. Shireen Abu Akleh was a prominent figure on Al Jazeera's Arabic news service who had been covering the Israeli-Palestinian conflict for 15 years. Al Jazeera journalist Nida Ibrahim said she was a very well-respected journalist and that the news was a shock to the journalists who have been working with her. A manhunt is underway for 2 Palestinians suspected of killing 3 Israelis in an axe and knife attack in central Israel. It happened in the predominantly ultra-Orthodox Jewish town of Elad on Thursday night. 7 were wounded, 2 seriously. It is the latest in a wave of deadly attacks in Israel by Palestinians or Israeli Arabs since late March. Israel has carried out raids in the occupied West Bank in response. Israeli police said the Palestinians who carried out the attack in Elad came from the district of Jenin in the northern West Bank. Crossings into Israel from the West Bank have been closed since Tuesday as a security measure, while Israel marked its annual Memorial and Independence Days this week. The attackers struck in a park in Elad, where families had gathered to celebrate Independence Day, and on a main street. We were in the synagogue when the warden shouted, "Terrorist! Terrorist!" An eyewitness named Mordecai Jackman said. We went outside and we saw an attacker running along a path and hitting anyone in front of him with an axe to the head. Both of the attackers were shouting, "Allahu Akbar, God is great." A man aged 35 and 2 40-year-old men were killed. They were buried after a joint funeral on Friday. Senator Gillibrand, New York, has spoken out on the Roe versus Wade abortion issue. See this video.
This is an issue that is defining for this country today. And if the American people don't stand up for equality for every American at this moment in time, we will be undermining a right to privacy in more than this context. Women deserve freedom and bodily autonomy. We deserve to be able to make decisions about when we are having children, under what circumstances we are having children, how many children we are having, and at what time we are having children. I would like to speak to America's men for 1 minute. Imagine you do not have authority over your own body for 10 months. Imagine if that decision-making would not be taken away, even if you would die in childbirth, even if you couldn't decide who you were having children with, even if you couldn't decide when you were having that child. I don't think a man in America could actually imagine not having control of his body, his bodily functions, what happens to him, and what life would be like for 10 months. It is an outrage that we have 5 justices on the Supreme Court who lied in their confirmation hearings in order to be confirmed. It is an outrage that in America today, that our judicial system is so corrupted and so politicized and no longer representative of the will of the people. 5 justices said they respect precedents. 5 said that Roe v. Wade was established precedents. 5 said they would never undermine established precedent. It is unconscionable what this decision will do to the American people. I do not think that 50% of America should be told that they have to put their bodies at risk of life or death without their consent. It is barbaric, it is inhumane, it is unacceptable, and I hope every human being in this country understands that when you take away a woman's right to make her decisions about her health and well-being, she is no longer a full citizen. She no longer has freedom. She no longer has bodily autonomy. She no longer has basic civil rights or civil liberties. That is what this decision would do in America today. Make no mistake, equal rights, constitutional rights to privacy, the ability to make your own decisions about your own life and your own death are on the ballot in November. I hope there is no one who's confused about this. It may happen to your daughter, it may happen to your wife, it may happen to your mother, it may happen to your transgender friend. It may happen to anyone, and it is not acceptable. This is a life or death moment, and we need to fight like it is.
Less abortion, more adoption. Why is that controversial? That was the response of Representative Dan Crenshaw, Republican, Texas, to a leaked Supreme Court majority opinion suggesting that the US faces an imminent reversal of Roe versus Wade. About halfway through the 98-page leaked opinion, which was authored by conservative Justice Samuel Alito, and which Chief Justice John Roberts acknowledged on Tuesday as genuine, came a familiar argument that modern developments, including the availability of safe haven laws, which allow parents to anonymously relinquish babies without legal repercussions, have rendered abortion unnecessary. The opinion noted that a woman who puts her newborn up for adoption today has little reason to fear that the baby will not find a suitable home. See this video.
South Carolina and Arkansas have passed basically complete abortion bans, almost complete abortion bans. Texas is about to. The Supreme Court is 6-3 opposed to abortion rights. Could they overturn Roe versus Wade?
Oh, absolutely. I mean, I think that, unless Justice Thomas and Justice Alito are lost at sea during the early phase of the Biden administration, I think Roe is doomed. Now, I think there are 2 questions. I mean, one is how quickly it will be doomed. Maybe they're a little cautious. I mean, maybe they realize that Democrats are kind of mad right now about how things went down with the last few Supreme Court confirmations, and they should maybe wait until there's a Republican Senate before they overrule Roe v. Wade. So they might not do it right away, but it's coming. The other thing is that I don't know that the Supreme Court will ever actually use the words Roe v. Wade is overruled. And the reason why is they don't have to. So like, we had a bunch of cases, one out of Texas, one out of Louisiana, dealing with what are often called trap laws. And these are laws that just put unnecessary and expensive restrictions on an abortion clinic. Your doctors have to have certain credentials that are hard to get and don't matter. Your halls have to be a certain width. You have to have, an HVAC system that costs this much money. And there's no actual health purpose. It's just to run up the cost of running a clinic.
And it's the equivalent of these voting restrictions, but on abortion.
Exactly. Yeah. I mean, I think it's only a matter of time before some state tries to say that you can't vote unless you have admitting privileges at a nearby hospital. But anyways, so once the Supreme Court opens the door to that sort of thing, they don't have to strike down Roe v. Wade. They can say, oh, yeah, abortion is protected by the Constitution. But if a state wants to say that all abortion clinics need to be made out of solid gold, that's fine. Doctors can perform abortions, but before they do, they have to complete a special training class that can only be taught by the Pope. Stuff like that. I mean, things that, in theory, leave the abortion law, the abortion right alive, but in practice make it impossible. And it doesn't even need to be as egregious as the class taught by the Pope or something like that, because the problem is that there's a moving target here. Yeah. So if the Supreme Court had upheld Texas's law with its admitting privileges and its hallways and stuff like that, Texas would have just passed another law that made it more restrictive and impose more and more restrictions on a clinic. Maybe they'll wait, until Planned Parenthood invest a bunch of money in a new $10 million facility that complies with all the legal obligations. And then they'll be sorry, we just looked at your operating rooms, but the ventilation systems aren't good enough. I guess you got to shut this down. And and eventually, if you're an abortion provider, you're just not going to be able to keep up. You're not going to keep lighting money on fire, making improvements to your buildings when 5 minutes later you're going to be told to do something else.
The UK National Secular Society and Atheism UK have welcomed a bill granting new powers to inspectors to tackle illegal schools. The schools bill, announced in the Queen's speech this week, will give education watchdog Ofsted greater powers to crack down on unregistered schools that are operating illegally. This includes strengthening the definition of what it constitutes an illegal school. Other measures in the bill include establishing a compulsory register for children not in school and a requirement for schools to publish an attendance policy. These measures will help protect children from being illegally educated in settings that are not monitored to ensure children's education and welfare needs are being met. Mubarak Bellah, who was recently sentenced to 24 years imprisonment, is the subject of a campaign for his freedom. To help with that, contact the Nigerian Humanist Association. The details will be underneath this video. Our Free Thought show today features an ex-fundamentalist Canadian named Stacey. It starts in a few minutes on this channel and is live, so you can join in if you wish. And don't forget, our spin-off show, Global Atheist News Review, with a panel of opinionated people, will be live streamed and recorded tomorrow, Sunday the 15th. The GAN team will be back with our weekly news report next week. Please like, share, subscribe, comment, and set the notifications. This has been Global Atheist News. Thank you for watching.